The biggest hole is that people are under the misconception that Medicare is going to pay for them or if they need help in a nursing home. So nobody understands any of that. If you think you know some things, you're probably wrong. Pretty much anything you've ever heard anecdotally is wrong. And I'm one of the rare people where it intersects and I understand that intersection. I take that responsibility.
So what's that number one piece of information? What's the one thing I should really be considering in building out that plan of mine?
Welcome to the Digital Legacy Podcast, where we talk about death and dying in the digital age. If you ever asked, how do I protect myself and those I love if something unexpected happened to me? You're in the right place. I'm your host, Niki Weiss, and together we'll explore how to protect yourself in a world where both your physical and digital legacy leave a lasting impact.
And welcome back to another episode of the Digital Legacy Podcast, where we talk about death and dying in the digital age. And today I am thrilled to have Sylvia on. Sylvia, I have been following you on social media well over 2 years now. And it is not just your content and your personality, which just brings delight, but it's taking very complex topics of Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and breaking it down into bite-sized, digestible, understandable pieces. So thank you so much for joining today.
My pleasure.
That's awesome. So tell us a little more about how you got started, a little bit about your background, and what brought you to this topic.
So I started off as an estate planning attorney. So wills, trusts. Then my family's business is insurance. So they said, can you help us with long-term care insurance? Because that kind of dovetails with estate planning. And could you help us with Medicare? And so then they kind of sucked me in over there. And I really enjoyed working with my family. So then I just went full-time into insurance. And I ended up spending the last 30 years of my career training insurance agents on Medicare. They don't want to learn about Social Security. They don't want to learn about taxation. They don't want to learn about because Medicare is enough. So I'm always trying to get people to learn just a little bit more. And at a certain point in COVID, I thought, I know all this stuff. And here I am basically winding down my corporate career. And I'm at the smartest part I've ever been. I know so much. So I thought I'll just pick up my phone and just start telling strangers stuff. And people really resonate. They're like, thank God, I didn't know who to ask. Nobody's talking about this, because your attorney knows your attorney stuff. And your insurance agent typically knows just that lane. And everybody knows just their lane. And I'm one of the rare people where it intersects and I understand that intersection. So I take that responsibility greatly. I really put a lot of effort into putting free content out there to help people. And I spend a couple hours every day, answering comments for strangers to help them. And it's just my way of giving back because I really enjoyed my career.
Well, it shines through on your content. But let me ask you, as an estate attorney, so you've dealt with this topic of death and dying. What do you find so difficult? Why do you find people are having a difficult time planning and talking about the inevitable?
So I think you would find it fascinating that maybe it's higher than 70% of attorneys fail to make an estate plan. They don't do a will or a trust. So we're trying to talk about the regular Americans that are very unfamiliar and very daunted by the language and the expense. Here's attorneys that can do it for free. They don't do it for the same reason that you don't do it. It's because people are superstitious. They feel like if I do it, I'm going to die.
There's that taboo, right? It's just
weird taboo about it. And it's depressing. So people just say, just do it later.
And
it's
later.
It's like if you do it, you're agreeing to the contract that you're going to die one day. And people are like, no, I don't think so.
It's weird. That level of denial. So how do you navigate that conversation with your clients?
I quickly went past the point of trying to convince people. I will help people that want to be helped. There's millions of people. So I'm not going to waste my time trying to convince you, because it's, pushing a rock up a hill. If you are completely against it because you're superstitious, because what's holding you back, and it's typically not money. People, it's not, a will is cheap. It's not my preferred vehicle for estate planning, but it's the entry level and it's cheap. It's not money that's holding people back. It's their own reluctance, fears, taboos. So I'm here for people that want to get over that. And it's really weird how it breaks down by gender. Women take this bull by the horns. Women handle the Medicare decisions in the family. Women are worried about this. And I think it's because we had lower economic status and we were more worried, like, how are we going to survive when our husband died? The men hate this stuff. And it's so hard to work with them. And this is when I train insurance agents, I always say, you got to read your client's body language right away, because the men will come in like this and you know right where you're starting with him.
Arms crossed, kind of leaning back, tucked in.
And then when they finally start to unwind and lean into, now you can talk to them. But you can't talk to the person that's like, I'm not going to die.
So when we talk about building out a final playbook, we always talk about the 3 scenarios, right? You die tomorrow, okay. And then there's that terminal diagnosis that you're not dying tomorrow, but the inevitable is coming. And then there's that long-term care plan. So even knowing people might not want to talk about, I'm dying tomorrow, do they understand how to navigate through Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and all the governmental programs that are out there in order to plan for their future, even if it's like a happy retirement?
So nobody understands any of that. I would say that if you think you know some things, you're probably wrong. Some people are like, well, my sister-in-law told me this, or I heard this at work. Pretty much anything you've ever heard anecdotally is wrong. It's like just mythological, or it's outdated. So it's interesting working with people that know nothing about Medicare, Social Security, Medicaid, long-term care. They know nothing. And the things they do know, you have to kind of gently convince them that, no, that's not correct. I try to be gentle and say, just Google it. Like, you don't have to trust me. Just, it's wrong. They're like, no, I'm adamant. I've heard this from everybody in my bridge club. I'm like, well, it's still wrong.
So what's that number one piece of information that if I'm working on my final playbook, that end of life plan, what should be when regarding these governmental programs, what's the one thing I should really be considering in building out that plan of mine? First thing.
The biggest hole is that people are under the misconception that Medicare is going to pay for them if they need help at home health care, or if they need help in a nursing home, assisted living, any type of skilled nursing facility, that they've paid into Medicare their whole life. They're currently paying Medicare Part B, which is about $200 a month. And they're paying copays and they're paying premiums for what other type of supplemental insurance. They're paying a lot and they assume it's going to cover it. And no, doesn't really cover it at all.
So it's that out of pocket that people are just not, that check.
A nursing home stay is almost always going to be 100% out of your pocket. It's not going to be covered by Medicare. It's not covered by Social Security. It's not covered by your supplemental insurance, maybe a tiny bit, maybe 90 days. And that, and most people don't know that a nursing home costs about $10,000 a month.
Minimum, right? I mean, if they're in memory care, it's going to be more, right?
It's people can't, if they haven't had a family member and you have no idea that it can be that expensive. And so there's huge sticker shock. So you're like, okay, well, I came into retirement thinking my Medicare was going to pay for it. Now it's not paying for it. So who does pay for it? And it's like, you're going to cash pay.
I have to tell you a story about, I had a client that I was working with. She was 71 years old and she has been paying for long-term care insurance for probably the last 10 years. And she felt like she was patting herself on the back because that's one of the questions I ask is, what is your long-term care plan? She said, I have insurance. I said, can you pull out the policy, please? And you know where I'm going with this. So she pulls out the policy, probably not looked at it she's just paying the bill. And then all of a sudden I said, do you realize that it only covers $2,500 a month? And then for her to really, like, at 71 years old and a widow, no children, like, she has to really start to face that aspect, that time that she's about to face in her life. Does that mean that she has to sell her home completely, and all that estate planning that she had done, leaving it to her nieces and nephews, really just has to put it into one bucket, and just like that's what she's going to spend the next $700,000 and ride out the rest of her life with?
So there's many different avenues that bring you to that precipice. So if I'm like the typical person and I've done nothing, and I get to the point where I need skilled nursing care, which we just call nursing home, but I want to distinguish that from assisted living. So I get to that point and I'm like, yeah, I got long-term care insurance. It's $2,500 a month. Okay. They're like, well, okay, you're going to come up with the other $6,500 a month. And you're like, I don't have 65. My social security is $2,000, They're like, okay, well then you're going to qualify for Medicaid. And so we need you to empty out your checking and savings and stock portfolios, anything like that.
House. They have to sell their house.
A house is different. So, okay. And this does vary very much. These laws vary state to state. But if I'm single, they're going to make me sell the house. But if I'm married, my husband can stay there. If we're just living together, then it gets more complicated. But we'll just say this just happened to one of my best friends' ex-father-in-laws or something, where he's getting evicted.
By the children?
By the children. Yeah. Because they were just living together for 10 years. So let's just, if I'm single, yeah, they're going to make me sell the house. But if I have any reasonable expectation I can return to the house, they won't make me sell it. Okay. So that's, if I go in there for a hip rehab, something like that. But if I'm going in there with dementia, I'm never coming out, then they make you liquidate the house. Right. It gets complicated if I have one of my the state.
The state.
The state is Medicaid. Medicaid is your state, which will be paying for your nursing home care. And Medicaid is different in all 50 states. But we don't just let people die in the street. So the state will give you care if you cannot afford it. Now, they're going to make sure that you've liquidated your assets, and they're going to take your income. So they'll take your Social Security, they'll take your pension, they'll take whatever you have coming in. And then whatever shortfall there is, like we said, if it's $10,000 a month and you're only going to be able to bring in $7,000, then they're going to pay for you. But later when you pass, if you did have any assets left, they can go after those assets. So that would be if I kept my house, if it wasn't required to liquidate it, they could put a lien on it. And that comes as a terrible shock to the kids that think when mom dies, right, we're going to get the house and we're going to divide that up. And then there's a lien on it, which makes sense because the state paid for all this care for your mom for all these months.
And they don't give a discount on that care, even in the state facilities, right? I mean, it really is, wow.
No, it's really expensive. My grandma, when my grandpa died, my grandma remarried a widower, and he was really rich. We were kind of like, oh, grandma, like she's going to get rich. Well, he had a very minor sinus surgery that he ended up having a stroke because of the surgery. And he stayed in the hospital for 6 years in a nursing home. And he was zero. They had to sell the whole farm. So
because of that last,
because of the nursing home care, if it's $100,000 a year, and you're there for 6 years,
that's it.
$600,000 all gone.
So how to plan, right? How to start planning, to start wrapping our head around, yes, this is part of living is dying. This might be one of those ways you might not die in your sleep. I know that's like everyone's dream, right? You hear that too? People just think, I'm just going to close my eyes and not wake up. Well, I just said this to my 92-year-old aunt the other day, who doesn't have her funeral arrangements made, who just thinks she's going to close her eyes and go to sleep. And when I asked her to start looking, I said, what if you open your eyes, but you can't get out of bed? Then what? Right? not just who's going to take care of you, but how are you going to pay for it? So what can we do as far as a planning process? Like, where should we start putting our planning efforts into this long-term care? Because long-term care insurance for our generation, right? Both we're, in our late 50s here, that's not really an option for many people. I know people who have a substantial amount of assets that might be able to private pay. But what about, people who are in the middle that don't have long-term care insurance and cannot private pay? What are our options?
My family business, Gordon Marketing, where we help independent insurance agents with life and health insurance, we helped agents sell long-term care insurance for 30 years, probably. I don't even know if we sell 10 policies a year now. I completely stopped dealing with it. I don't really believe in it. And the problem is, if you do believe in it, it's so expensive and you have to be so healthy that most people don't actually qualify once they get to that point. So the new product that filled that gap is a type of life insurance called life insurance with living benefits. And that's what I bought. So life insurance, normally there's a benefit if you die. It's not going to benefit me, right? It's going to benefit my kids. But with living benefits, it means it'll benefit me while I'm alive. So I can use that death benefit if I want to get care in my home, however I want to get it. If I want to live in assisted living, if I need to go in a nursing home. So I can draw from that pot of money while I'm alive. And that is a great alternative to long-term care insurance because it's very expensive. And if you die, you paid all that money and you get nothing back. If you are the lucky person that dies in their sleep, all that money you paid in just accretes to the insurance company.
And so that's your recommendation.
Life insurance with living benefits.
Life insurance with living benefits. I think that's a new term for me. I haven't heard before. When do they put it on the market?
Probably it's been 10 years, but the whole long-term care market, it already has that taboo. People don't want to talk about it. They're like, hey, did you get, no one's excited about this. So you'll probably never hear about it.
And what do you think we can do to change that conversation? Because we are living longer. It's interesting. We had this before we hit record, is that we're living longer. We're also dying longer.
I know. Well, what you're doing is just starting the conversation, and then your company will take it from there. But the value is just talking about dying. We all have to die. Nobody gets out alive. So you can't just be blasé about it. I always say you can tell how much you love your kids by what level of estate planning you do. Mm-hmm. If you don't love them at all, you don't do any. And that sounds really harsh. You're like, no, I love my kids. No, you don't. Because if you die intestate with nothing, you left them a huge mess, hours of frustration and money, and they have to take off work and they're already grieving you because they love you. And you had a choice your whole life not to do that to them. So you made a choice. You don't love them very much. Now, if you love your kids a little bit, you will get a will. That's the bare minimum.
And make sure you get it notarized, because I know people that get the online wills, but then they never get it notarized.
A will typically doesn't have to be notarized. The power of attorney does, the other documents do, but a will just typically has to have 2 witnesses. But that's the bare minimum. If you love your kids, you do one thing. And if you really love your kids, then you sit down and you approach this the way you approached all the other important decisions in your life. And you look at all the different aspects of it and you talk to your kids, like what you're providing, a playbook. There's so much they need to know. If you die tomorrow, you're gone. You're out of here.
That's easy.
You're leaving a mess for the people you love. So how much do you love your family?
And it's interesting, the cavalier comments I get from a lot of people are like, dead is dead. What do I care? And I just look at them. And you and I haven't really even talked about the digital component, right? Based on the work that you've done, that digital piece really hasn't impacted your clients yet?
Well, they're dying every day and it's impacting them.
Passwords, subscriptions.
People our age are going through it with their parents right now. Right. And they're learning trial by fire. And they're like, oh, crap. So they're thinking, I better tell my kids this, and I need to show my kids this, and I need to clean this up, and I need to delete this.
So you've been doing it for 30 years now?
31.
So roll back the clock. How is that estate planning, end of life planning different today than it was, say, 25 years ago? Where do you see the difference?
Well, I wish I'd say there's a lot more adoption, that a larger segment of the population is doing this, but no. As far as the people that do want to do it, there are much more complex vehicles that can do a lot more. So I don't know what that means to you. There are trusts that can do a lot more stuff from the grave and in perpetuity. And there's things that you can do. You can set it up. You know, I always have, if I have a family that would come in for a will, they typically have 3 kids. There's always one kid that's a problem. One's on drugs, or one's on
issues.
There's always one. And the family's always really embarrassed. But then they say, ideally, we'd like to give everything equally to the 3 kids, but we can't give Bob a third because he'll blow it on whatever. So what can we do for Bob? And there's been a lot of advancements in what you could do.
Setting up that trust, a payment schedule.
Different vehicles that you can do.
Right. So we also, one of the topics we wanted to get into because we wanted to hit some of those hot topics, which was the Medicare Recovery Program.
Medicare and Medicaid are sister programs that are completely different. Medicare, healthcare. So Medicaid, aid for people with low income and low assets. And I hate the person who made these names so similar. But Medicaid Estate Recovery is a terrifying event for most middle-class people. Their one asset that they've worked their whole life for is their house. It's paid off. They're very proud of the equity in that house, and they want to pass that down to the generations. And they assume they can. It's debt-free, you know, why won't they? And they don't realize that if they go into a nursing home and they can't pay for it, they go on Medicaid, that Medicaid can come back after they die and force their heirs to sell the house and pay back the state Medicaid for their parents' care. That's called Medicaid Estate Recovery, MERC or MERP. It's required in all states. They do a little bit differently in all states, but basically it makes sense. If somebody's paying to take care of your mom $10,000 a month, they're going to probably want to come back for that money, right? So if you don't do anything, if you haven't put that house in a legal vehicle so that nobody can reach it, the house is not going to go to your kids. It's going to go to pay your debt.
So let's just step into that, because I know a friend of mine, she was very proud to say, oh, my 90-year-old parents just gifted the house to my brother and I. So a house that they bought 60 years ago for 40 grand, that's now worth well into the 600,000. They gifted the house to the children. Now what? I mean, the parents, they didn't put it in a trust, which where you're shaking, like that's what they should have done, right? They should have put it into an irrevocable trust.
Right. So if I give it to my kids today, so like I said, there's all these competing things. So if I give it to my kids today and I don't go into a nursing home, it's 5-year look back right now, which of course can be changed, but it's a 5-year look back. So I don't go into a nursing home for 7 years. Kind of won. I beat the system. I transferred it to my kids and I get free nursing home care. And when I pass, they can't go after my kids. So you kind of beat that system. The system can also beat you. So I transferred it to my kids, love my kids, great kids. But my son is backing out of his driveway one morning and he's on his phone and he runs over a girl in the neighborhood. Oof. So now he's getting sued and they're going to collect against his assets. And he owns half my house that I'm living in. My son that I love very much, good kid. But the marriage is kind of rocky. And now they're getting divorced. My son, I didn't know had a gambling problem. Had no idea. My son, see what I'm saying?
Right.
I do not own this house. Therefore, I no longer have control. And as much as you love your son, you may not know what you've subjected yourself to. And if I do go into the nursing home, so say I have a stroke in 2 years, I'm still within that 5-year look back. So the government's going to look at all the transfers and gifts that I made, and they're going to say, hey, you gave a $600,000 asset to your kids. So we're not going to pay for your nursing home. They take that $600,000 and they divide it by what it costs for you to be in a nursing home. So if it's at $10,000 a month and it's $120,000 a year, and they divide that and they say, okay, we're not going to pay for you for 4 years. Well, who's going to pay for me? Well, you better tell your son and your daughter to sell that house, because they're going to have to pay for you, because we're not.
And the Medicare estate.
Nope.
Go ahead.
Medicaid, so think aid. Medicaid is aiding
somebody, right? Medicare is taken care of.
Healthcare, yeah.
Right. So from the house standpoint, the Medicaid estate planning or estate program, right? The recovery program is going to touch that, is going to go after the house.
Are they going to go after the kids for fraud? It's the whole thing. If you're transferring it in anticipation of going into a nursing home, they're coming back for you.
Okay. And people, I think, need to come to terms with that. Because I think they're trying to beat the system. And that's where planning comes in. That's why I try to say to my friend whose parents are in their 90s, I'm like, that boat, that ship already left.
Yeah, it's a little late. But I deal with this every day. Nobody wants to do this. Nobody wants to deal with any of this. I mean, there's so many things that you help people with, right? It's not just, do you have a will or trust? Have you picked out a few? Do you want cremated? What do you want to? There's so much
details.
Yeah, like you said, if you're spending 4 to 6 hours with people, that's a lot of ground to cover. And if they have any of it done, it's kind of a miracle. If they're like, oh yeah, I gave power of attorney to my daughter, I'm like, well, thank God. That's better than 99% of the population. Do something. Once you do something, it's just like any other thing you don't want to do. Once you do one thing, it makes it a little easier to do the next one. You need to keep going. But when you feel like you have to drink out of a fire hose, you're just like, no, thank you. I don't have time for this.
And this, what we're talking about now, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, it is a fire hose that they didn't prepare us for in college. During my 30-year career, I come out thinking I'm retiring after 30 years and Medicaid, Social Security is going to take care of me. I'm not going to have to worry about it. But that's not the reality, is it?
Right. You pay in out of every paycheck. 15% out of every paycheck goes for this thing, FICA, Social Security, and Medicare. You figured you're good. No. And nobody is invested in helping you. The government doesn't care if you sink or swim. Nobody cares. They have a funny thing on their website. It says failure to know the rules is not a justification for an exception to the rules. It's like, your fault. You don't understand all this stuff.
So the onus is on us for a very complicated system that, by the way, changes. You came on the call. So talk a little bit about the changes, your prediction, the next 2 to 3 years?
I mean, I don't know if it's my prediction. If I was in charge, I would take over those drugs, have government take over and lower the price so that we can help everybody and we can afford to help everybody. The government can do that. Will they? I mean, it's unlikely, very unlikely. It's more likely they put up barriers and they tell people they can't get it or they have to pay for it on their own.
Right.
They keep doing what they have been doing. But every time you get a new administration, I always just say, take a deep breath and let's see. Let's wait and see.
Because what they're proposing during the election cycle, right, during their campaigns, and what they're actually able to get through,
it's people, my demographic of people watch TV. And they watch a lot of rhetoric during the election, so much so that they hear the same thing over and over again, so that after the election, a lot of people believe that happened. They're like, well, they won, so there's no tax on Social Security. I'm like, that was something they talked about during the campaign. It's very hard to do that. After when Biden won the last election, Bernie Sanders was speaking all the time about getting a dental benefit. And I had so many people call saying, well, we got a dental benefit now. Biden won. It's like, no, actually making any of these changes into new rules or new laws is very difficult.
So like you said, just take a deep breath, focus on yourself.
Wait and see, because nobody knows yet. It's all speculation.
But what they can do, and what we're empowering people to do, is to start making a plan, right? Is to break through.
Do one thing.
One thing. So what could be that I'm 10 years away from retirement. I'm still focused on getting my kids through college, but my parents are aging. What can I do today for myself to make sure that I'm in a better place in preparation for Medicare, Medicaid, that long-term plan?
I mean, there's no right answer because it's so broad and so many different directions that you could go in. People are saying, if you had one piece of advice, what would you give me? My advice is always take better care of your teeth. That sounds pithy, but teeth are really expensive. Medicare doesn't cover any dental, and teeth really throw people because if you haven't had an infection, a root canal, an extraction, an implant, you don't know it could be $5,000 for one tooth.
One tooth.
And you don't know that you're going to have, nobody has one bad tooth. They're all going to go. You're going to have a bunch of them. And you're not going to have any help from government Medicare for the teeth. So that kind of comes out of left field where you have cataracts are covered and cancer's covered and but the teeth really throw people and teeth are expensive. And that's something, if you're 10 years out from retirement, you can make a difference in your teeth. I always tell people, if you're going to the dentist once a year, go twice. If you're going twice, go 3 times. I go 4 times a year. I get them cleaned quarterly. I'm fanatical about it because we had bad teeth in my family. And, people get abscesses that go to your brain. I mean, it's bad.
It's bad hooked into your circulatory system.
Bad oral health washes all your major organs in that bacteria. So it degrades your other health. And my daughter's a dentist, but I don't go to her to clean my teeth. But I go because I know how much it degrades your overall health.
So small things like that.
That's why I said do one thing. Because if you do one thing, like telling your kids where your banking information is, what bank you use, what your logins and passwords are, if you just start, then it makes it easier. And they get to the point when they're like, yeah, I need to work with Niki. I need to do all of the rest of this. I've proven that I can do it, get over that taboo. And I've realized it's daunting and I don't want to do it by myself. I want some help.
And asking for help. I know that your family has a business. A little bit about if people needed services, how can they find your team?
So my son's company is themedicarefamily.com. And we help people with Medicare decisions. So all your different Medicare coverages, other types of health insurance you would need once you're eligible for Medicare. And our services are free. We're licensed in all 50 states. If you need help, you can just go to our website, check us out, read our reviews, and you can book a free appointment at any state.
Like I said, it's an educational opportunity stepping into. So my advice to people is if retirement is on the horizon, before you retire, you should have all of this set up in place, right?
Well, none of us know when we're going to die. We all have friends that have died younger than us, right?
Yeah.
And I always think, like I did a lot of cleaning this summer because I had somebody die my age. And I thought, I don't want my kids to have to deal with this clutter, And we all have a lot of that in our garage, in our attics, and our, and
computers.
Just do a little bit because you do love your family and you don't want to burden them with this.
Peace of mind for those you leave behind. And with that, Sylvia, thank you so much for sharing your expertise, your years of experience, and more importantly, your passion about getting people to talk about this topic.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Digital Legacy Podcast, where we talk about death and dying in the digital age. I hope this conversation inspired you to take control and plan for the inevitable to protect yourself and those you leave behind. Don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter at digitallegacypodcast.com. Remember, life is full of surprises. What happens after you die shouldn't be. So keep your passwords safe and your playbook up to date.